You can't see it, but you have
Nuts in my teeth?
right there.
Do you want me to stop recording?
No. That's love.
Yeah. I'm not going to be able to get it without you getting it. You're fine. You're fine. No. A little stuck right there.
You're listening to Conversations in Bed with me, Joleene DeRosier.
And me, Ken Case.
You are so hot. This is the freshest, funnest, most fantastical podcast out there on later in life relationships that takes place right in our bed. Don't go anywhere. We're about to give you the goods on love, life, and leaning into truly powerful relationships right now.
Welcome to the Conversations in Bed podcast. I'm Ken Case.
And I am Joleene DeRosier. Thank you so much for tuning back in to our third episode of Conversations in Bed. And I'm pretty stoked about this conversation.
This is going to be poignant.
It's poignant because we're picking up from where we left off in the second episode. And if you didn't hear episode 2, that's okay. We're just going to recap a little bit on what we talked about in the last episode, which was the masculine, feminine energies and what happens when we fall out of them. So I think what we should do, especially if people are just turning this on as their first episode, we're so excited, thank you so much, is explain to them what the masculine, feminine energies are, just to recap that, and what happens when we fall into our old roles. Our old roles being you and your wounded feminine, me and my wounded masculine. So we'll talk a little bit about that. We'll define what they are. We'll define what the wounded states are. We'll talk about what happens when we fall backwards. And then we'll gleefully share more nuggets as we go through this.
That'd be great. Yep.
First, what's in your mug, baby?
Well, in my mug today, drinking the locally brewed and manufactured Paul de Lima right here in upstate New York. This is a dark roast. Yes. Interesting history. Started back in the 1900s. Early 1900s, I believe, when they went to Brazil and then traveled back to Syracuse, and it's been here ever since. It's changed families, but still doing the same local brew and specializing in, some flavored coffees and some really good stuff. So I had to go with the local.
Yeah. It's funny because I grew up with my parents drinking Paul de Lima, and if you're from this region, the coffee can is iconic.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the kind of coffee can you see in garages, and people put their screws in them. Like my grandfather had so many different ones, and he would put nails in one and screws in the other. And what is the movie, and maybe I'm putting you on the spot here, where the ashes of somebody are in a Paul de Lima? Do you know what I'm talking about?
I don't.
I got to figure, if anyone knows, let us know. But yeah, it's in a movie, and they're throwing the ashes, I think, over a cliff, and it's a Paul de Lima can.
I did not know that.
Yeah, that it's in.
Yep. Interesting.
So, yeah.
In the meantime, like we do in all of these podcasts, I have a question for you that you're unaware of.
Okay.
Let's see if I can pop this on you. It won't be anything too traumatizing. So, what is your favorite time of year and why?
Oh, Christmas. I love Christmas. It reminds me, my mom loved Christmas.
Mm-hmm.
And it reminds me of that. And she would go all out. She did the tinsel on the Christmas tree was out of control. There was way too much of it, but that's what you did back in the late 70s, early 80s. And she really worked hard to make it the very best for us kids and always took us to go see things and do things. It was magical. Christmas was magical to me. So that is to this day, my favorite time of year. And whatever I can do to even deck my own place out to make it super Christmassy. I never turn the Christmas tree off either. And I do it the day after Thanksgiving. I put the tree up. I plug that baby in, and it stays lit the whole time. So my energy bill may go up a little bit, but it's worth it to me. How about you?
Excellent.
Yeah.
Excellent. So my favorite time of year, I think I was going more for a season.
Oh!
But that's okay. That's okay. Because certainly holidays are way up there because of family. Absolutely. But my favorite time of year, I would have to say, is fall.
Me too.
Fall. And the reason why I prefer fall, I hate being hot. So it's great living in upstate New York, right? Because we have a lot of not so hot times, but recently we've been getting some pretty hot weather. And the snow, as I get older, just becomes to be a little bit of a drag. So fall, it's just beautiful. It's the changing leaves, it's the changing colors, it's a transition. Coming out of that summer season into winter season, and it's just a time of um, I think of it as a time of kind of rebirth a little bit. I know a lot of people think spring that way, which is very true, obviously. But fall, I think it's kind of that transition to where you go from being outside and then you start looking forward to being inside. And it
Yep.
gets a little cooler. And yeah, I love the colors and I love the fall, the crunching of the leaves under your feet. Um,
It's a good thing we spend time together because it is, now that I understand the question, that is my favorite time of year, true story. And I agree with you. It's like, for me, I like to hibernate.
mhm.
It's the beginning of this hibernation season where you don't have to live so much out loud. And I like to hunker down. And I don't mind the snow. And I'm getting older too. I certainly don't want to like spend my days out in it. But sometimes I take this little dude right here and we go for a little romp in the snow and he thinks it's a good time. But I love fall as well. I like the seasons changing and the leaves and the smell and the tea and the hot cocoa and the cider and all
Mhm.
the holidays leading into Christmas, which is my favorite holiday. So yeah, there you
Very
go.
good. Excellent.
Cool.
Yep.
So you ready to dive in?
Let's dive in. Let's dive in. A little recap. Yeah.
Okay. So recapping, what the wounded masculine is and how it relates to our experiences. For me, I often exhibited what is known as wounded masculine traits that had me trying to control situations around me. It had me being a little more aggressive. This is what the wounded masculine looks like. It primarily shows up. This is interesting because I was talking about this with my coach yesterday. Most women in relationships are in their wounded masculine most of the time. Like when you look at it percentage wise, when you look at a failed relationship, he's in his wounded feminine and she's in her wounded masculine. That is the dynamic that we speak to that we were in our past lives. So I was in that masculine energy and I did it to protect myself. And in future episodes, I'll go more into why. It has to do with things that happened in my childhood that I haven't talked about in decades because I didn't remember for decades. But a lot of women end up in this space where they're trying to control the environment around them to protect themselves because of things that have happened to them, because of poor relationships in the past. And we live in that state of mind because we're in our subconscious when we do it. So that's how I ended up to be in my wounded masculine. Before you talk about your wounded feminine, we chose to do this podcast essentially in real time as we're growing in our relationship and learning this because you and I think we both agree it's the best relationship we've ever had.
Yep. Absolutely.
And it's because of the choices that we're making and understanding this dynamic, this polarity, this energy that exists in every single one of us, and it is not related to gender. Everyone possesses masculine and feminine energies. We're going to dive into what happens when it's wounded. What does that mean? How does it produce negative effects in your life? What can you do to shift it so you have the positive experiences that you're supposed to and exist in your core energy?
Yeah. Yeah. And as far as I'm concerned, going back to those past relationships in past lives, I was living in my wounded feminine. And just to key off something that you said earlier, this is the best relationship we've found or that we've had. Of course, that is because what have we done? We have flipped the script from where we were that wasn't working to where we are and took an interest in learning about the polarity. And boy, what a difference it has made. So it obviously works.
Yeah,
right. I mean, it obviously you have to put the time and energy into it, but it obviously works. But getting back to living in your wounded feminine. So when I was living in my wounded feminine, very much. You talk about it being a mode of protection for you, being in your wounded masculine. I think it's somewhat similar being in your wounded feminine, only because from again I've said this before that a lot of men live in that space in the wounded feminine because we think that what the way to make you happy is to make our part to let our partner be happy is to let them make the decision to do what they want to do, and we're just going to appease them and go down that road. So the wounded feminine is really living in that space where you're a people pleaser and you're over apologizing and you're just allowing and trying to feed off of what you think your partner wants, when in actuality what they really want is for you to step up and do it and take charge and take the lead in those things. So living in that space was exactly that. And so I think it was kind of a means of protection for me because I just wanted to make that partner happy and live in that space. So that's what I thought I was doing. When in actuality, it was just the opposite.
And we didn't know.
And we didn't know. We had no idea until we started exploring it separately. And again, you're the one that kind of really turned me on to the whole concept of it. And I started studying it before we met. And when we did come together, it was just a complete shift. You were 180 degrees from where you were. I was 180 degrees from where I was. And geez, it worked. So you can't keep doing the same old thing and expect different results, right? And I think that's what we found. So that's a recap of really what the wounded feminine is. It's kind of being that people pleaser, that over apologetic type of person, it not acting, just and that's another part of it, and putting things
huge.
off, and trying to then bury your head in the sand, and it's a whole dynamic.
When you talk about acting, though, I know a lot of women can relate to that. And some of the TikToks I've done, it's frustrated some of the men who come into the comments, but it's if you say you're going to do something, you do it. That's leading. And when a man who belongs in if that's his core energy, the masculine energy, when you're in your core masculine, I naturally fall into my core feminine, which is where I want to be, which is soft, which isn't overly anxious, which usually before the cameras come on, I'm overly anxious. And you're so calm that it kind of brings me down. You know what I mean? I've been in production for a lot of years and I've always been buzzing and buzzing and buzzing. And little bite-sized pieces of me are learning just to, come down a little bit. So thanks to you being in that natural state of leading, even in this strong silence the way you do, it puts me in my natural feminine, which is softer and more nurturing. I've made the decision myself to no longer force, which is what I was always doing, was trying to force outcomes. That's wounded masculine. But I'm a work in progress daily. So that's why we decided to talk about what happens when we revert back. And we have.
We certainly have, yeah.
It's funny because when we were sitting down to make notes of this particular podcast, we had moments even doing that because we were I was reverting back. I know I was certainly reverting back into pain.
We remember, reflecting back, we were trying to come up with examples and stuff, and it's like, oh my God, remember that time when? And yeah, those were really, there was a lot of strong feelings and emotions with those, because we did revert back to, you would go into your wounded masculine where you were, demanding and overpowering and all that stuff. And then I naturally sucked back into my, I'm sorry, it's my fault. I'm the problem, it's me. Thanks, Taylor. So it was tough. And then we had to stop for a minute, and we had to we literally had to kind of reconnect a little bit and just say, okay, let's take a breather and just.
Can you talk about what the reconnect is? Because please, what you mean by reconnect, because I think it's important for people listening to actually do this when they think they're going to go in any place of fighting or fear or confrontation.
Yeah. So reconnecting, actually, I think kind of started from, a concept that I learned or heard of or whatever it was years and years and years and years ago, which was really, I don't even know if I've talked to you about this, but I remember reading or seeing somewhere about the 15-second hug, right? How can you be mad at somebody when you're hugging them? So when you come, if you have a crappy day at work, if you have whatever it may be, and you walk inside the house, instead of just, going off and just being blah, just do a 15-second hug, right? And it just kind of grounds you. So getting to the reconnecting part, I think we take it a little, a little bit further, and it's just because we enjoy each other's company so much in talking that sometimes, especially after we've reverted back to, we have an episode where we reverted back to, our wounded self, and we just need a breather, and we kind of, I'll go to work and you're working, and we do our thing, and you're still kind of in that space. And I've said it and you've said it also. It's like, tonight, I think we just need to light a candle, put on some music, and just reconnect. Right. And we just kind of sit there and we just kind of talk.
Candle kissing, cuddling.
Okay.
We call it candle kissing, cuddling.
And cuddling, yeah. And wow, what a difference it makes. And then it brings us to a better place to talk, because if that was a space where you were in your wounded masculine, I was in my wounded feminine. Well, instead of trying to get into this conversation, to have a discussion about it and being in that angry state and then me cowering, it makes it okay. It makes it a peaceful place to discuss.
Yeah.
And every single time we've done that, we come out stronger on the other end.
Yeah.
I want to say it's bizarre. It's not bizarre, right? It makes perfect sense, but
Well,
it's
bizarre
it's
'cause we've never
foreign.
experienced
Yeah,
it. Yeah.
right, exactly.
Yeah.
It was foreign to us. So that's the reconnecting part. And I think even if we don't, sometimes it's just nice to reconnect. I think I said there was nothing going on with us, but it was just something. And I sent you a text and I said, I think tonight we just need just to be, and just that. I think that's where we came with the candles, cuddling, and kissing part. I said, just let's light a candle, let's turn on some music, and let's just kind of reconnect.
That's leading, ladies and gentlemen. That is leading. Sending a text like that saying, here's what we're doing tonight. You and me, baby, on the couch, candle lit, kissing, cuddling, talking.
Yeah, and we joke and we laugh. It's not all serious, right?
Oh, yeah.
We laugh, and some of the laughter is great. That's the best part about it,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, but we always come out on the winning end if you really keep that open. So
Awesome. You're listening to Conversations in Bed with Joleene DeRosier
and Ken Case.
If you'd like to sponsor our podcast with a specialty coffee, t-shirts, or your business or product, drop us an email. The email is in show notes.
Yep, we'll drink the coffee, share its origin, and insert your product or business right here in the middle of our podcast.
Thank you so much for being a part of our community. Now back to the goods.
Yeah.
Well, let's go into the hard part that gives me anxiety, and that's talking about when we have reverted back, when we have had moments of deeper discussion. Mm-hmm. So I say that because old versions of me in past lives, I experienced arguing and heated anger, and we don't have that. But we do have deeper discussions. We do have moments of tension. So let's share a story. Mm-hmm. Of how we both reverted back.
Do we have to?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we do.
We always got to be reminded, so it's not a bad thing.
No, it's not a bad thing. So there was a moment where, let me put it this way. When I'm in my wounded masculine, I need to be in control. Mm-hmm. And when I don't understand where things are, or even when it comes to finances, what's going on, I become very scared. And I need to understand. And we had a moment where I had questions about paperwork that had to do with our joint venture. What was happening with it? What is the status of it? How far did you go with it, Ken? What's the deal? And in the past, I would have with past partners been like, what's going on? What's happening? Mm-hmm. What's the deal? I need to know. I need to know everything. Oh, you're not going to take care of it? I will. And choosing not to do that and trusting you is me being safe and being in my feminine energy. Well, I did not do that. And you came home and I was anxious. I hadn't heard what is happening with this paperwork. What's the deal? And you sat down in front of me. You're like, I literally filled it out today. And had I just asked, I would have known that. But I immediately went into that wounded state, which I think immediately put you in your wounded state. So your reaction was?
Yeah, so I clammed up, right? I was apologizing because, and truth be told, it was filled out that day. But truth be told, it probably should have been done the week prior, right? And but we still had plenty of time. There was plenty of time. So that's where you got to learn each other, because we talk about timelines. Your timeline is now, which is not a bad thing. My timeline is, I'll get it done. We have time, right? But why not take care of it then and there? But getting back to this example, all I had to do was communicate that. And had I communicated that, it would have solved this whole situation. But then as I got deeper and deeper into my wounded feminine, and you got deeper and deeper into your wounded masculine, while we were trying to discuss it, things that I said or tried to bring up, you took as an excuse, or you took it as if, and this is my take on it right now, you took it as if this was a past, what happened in the past.
Yeah.
And this isn't what happened. We weren't in the past anymore. This wasn't anything. This was me. This was me now, right? So while it wasn't perfect to you, I think it was probably better than it was in the past, but it still needed to be better. And I fell into that wounded feminine. And exactly, part of it was, there was a healing part in this, where I acted a little better, was I didn't hound you. I normally would have been all over you saying, let's talk about this now. Let's talk about this now. I'm sorry. Please, let's talk and let's get it ironed out, blah, blah, blah.
Because I came in here.
Yep.
And I hit it here and I said, I just need to be alone.
Yep. And I stayed on the couch.
So the old version of you would have hounded me.
Would have been right in here. And that would have just triggered you, and you would have just, it would have just gotten worse and worse and worse. So I had learned from that up to this point to stay out there. But you were looking for a couple minutes later, or a half hour later, or whatever, once she had been here and been separated and had time to be alone and had time to decompress. She was looking for me to come in here while you were in here, and then start a discussion. And
I wanted to be held. I wanted to be held. Like I wanted you to come in and say, I got you, baby.
Yeah.
We're gonna be okay.
Yeah.
But because we were in those old versions of ourselves, that didn't happen.
Yeah. Yep. Exactly. Yeah. And then we eventually did get there.
Yeah.
And we talked about it. And there was just, again, communication. Communication is key. Now that I know what you were looking for there, because I took it very literally. You said you needed time alone. So what did I do? I stayed out there. And that's what I did, was I stayed out there. And you were looking for me to come in here at some point and lead back to normalcy. And I didn't do that because I was trying to respect you wanted to be alone. So it's this whole overthinking and this whole going up to the extreme. So this is all such a learning thing that we're going to be constantly learning all the time. So that was one where we resorted back. And again, we did reconnect and we did talk about it. And that was a tough one. That was definitely a tough one. But we did come back. I mean, I think stronger. And now those lines are even more open. So
I want to touch on the communication piece, because it's no secret that that's probably the biggest issue in relationships, is communication. And the fact that we can talk about the need for it to improve is huge. That's communicating, because it's to the timelines. I am that kind of like, if we get it done now, we don't have to worry about it. And you're kind of like, it'll get done. And I want to be clear. This is normal. The only piece that's missing is just that, like you said, that little bit of communication that says, okay, because, like if you were to come in and be like, hey, I didn't get to this yet, but I'm on it. only because you know how I am. But at the same time,
Mhm.
I have to meet you and have that level of trust that it will get done. And there's many times I've done it and bam, it's done. So it's the old wounding, the old patterns, and the old experiences coming back up that I have to say, you can visit, but you need to sit down because this man has it. So it's me learning you as well and trusting it.
Yeah, yeah, you brought up a great point. It is meeting also because yes, you need to expect that it's good. Not expect. You need to just let it ride and that it will get done. But I also have to show you by action that it will get done. So as we move along, as we start to do things that with this venture, with so many things in life that we're looking to do together, right? There will come a point in time, which is the goal, where that hesitation, that thought, whatever it is, isn't even there. It's like I don't even have to worry about it.
Right.
And then you'll truly be in your healed feminine, right? And I'll truly be in my healed masculine. Healing. We talked about this the other night. I don't know if I can put an ED on the end. It's always going to be healing, right? But we always have to be keeping that goal in mind. And so that there's not in the very beginning, it's I don't want to say it's forced, but you're think about it all the time. It's like I have to do this, I have to do that. A perfect example. Maybe I'm going to jump ahead here, but a simpler example of of healing and making a decision, right?
I love this.
And just
This
making
is
it.
the chicken one. Right?
Yeah. Just making a decision, right? And so I was learning. I thought I was doing good, and I was doing good. And getting into a state, I went shopping, and I would ask you things, and simple things, and it's like just make the decision, right? So I went grocery shopping, and you had chicken down, I think, right? So I had to buy chicken, and so I'm literally standing there, and I'm looking at the chicken, and I'm like, breasts or thighs, because I love smoking, right? I love smoking meat, so I make a mean chicken thigh. They're great. You can abuse them, and they turn out great. Breasts are a little harder to do, right? They tend to dry out a little bit, so whatever. But you make a great fried chicken breast. So I literally stood there for like, it seemed like an eternity. It was probably 45 seconds, a minute, but let's say it's 5 minutes, and I'm like, should I get the breast or should I get the thighs? Should I get the breast? Should I get the thighs? I could just call her and ask her. And I'm like, I'm not going to call her and ask her. It's chicken. I'm just going to get, and I think I got thighs. But yeah.
So good.
Yeah. And I'm like, she's not going to be mad at me for bringing home chicken. And you were perfectly fine with what I bought. So, but that's the level to where you have to go. And you really have to just think about that. That's such a simple example and such a small example, but that becomes huge when it comes to things, bigger things. If you're not around and we need a new furnace, well, guess what? You're going to make a decision on which furnace you're going to get, so.
How many times at a grocery store, I don't know about you, but how many times at a grocery store have you seen, I see it all the time, a man on the phone? Which one do I get? I swear to God.
Yes.
Now, just to be clear, I know that some people are very specific about what they want, but this is how minute you can get with this is, how about I'm just okay? Instead of it always being what I need, what I want, my way, I know best.
Mhm.
What if I was just okay with it? Like, you spend a lot of time here and you'll make meals for me and you have the pans out this way and doing everything. And then an old version of me would have been, my God, you should clean this up. Don't cook that this way. Don't do that. How about I just shut the up and let you do it? And it's enjoyable and it's fun. Like when we attempted to make these t-shirts last night, I'll allow it. The fun you and I had, these suck, by the way. But we're really looking for a t-shirt sponsor that can help us. But trying to iron these out and trying to figure out the lettering and everything, right?
It was fun. It was.
But an old version of me wouldn't have been okay with that.
Yeah.
It would have been like, oh my God, this is a mess. We got to do it. So ladies, if you're thinking, I wanted the chicken breast and I needed him to know it, he should have known it, I want it my way, what if you just allowed it? And let the man come home with whatever he wants and then let him make it and enjoy that experience. Like enjoying you on these levels instead of trying to control every single aspect of my life, your life, his life, Luke's life, the dog, just allowing it and having that softness. And it's a good space to be in. So, and take it from a woman who is very controlling. It's nice to let go.
On another note, it doesn't hurt that I'm an okay cook.
Oh, you're amazing. No, I love it. Yeah, I really like it. I like it when I do. It's so good.
No, I enjoy it. So
It's so good.
Yeah.
Is there anything else on this before we crawl out of this episode?
Yeah, I don't think so. I think just being willing to give grace and space to that person as they're healing and as you're healing.
Yeah.
I mean, that's really, really so important. You're both going to revert back, and realizing and knowing that this is just from a past relationship or something that happened in the past, and it's no longer that. And as long as you're both willing to talk it out, I mean, communication is so key. We've talked about that. Communication is so key, and just really, we never go away, man. We never leave the house without, if I come in and I'm
will
leaving.
No longer go in the other room.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
We go, if you're here, we sleep in this bed together.
Yeah.
That's the way it goes.
Yep. And if I happen to be here, or I stop in and I'm gonna head back out and head down the road, then we always leave with a kiss. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just one of those things where you got to connect. Connection is so key.
Choice. Oh, totally. Yeah. A conscious choice. And you both have to be in. I was going to say something. I was going to say something so quippy and clever. And now I don't remember what it is. That's the thing. Well, that's why I love our talk so much, is something fresh and new always comes up. Both have to be willing. Here's what I was going to say is and then we can wrap it up and go into what we're going to talk about next time. When you think it's going to be like it used to. I experienced this in the past because I'm speaking as a woman. Many women say there are no men like Ken Case out there. My man would never do that. This doesn't exist. You're right, because you believe that's true. I used to believe that was true. When I made the decision to think differently and change my energy and call things in differently, everything changed. There's no BS about energy. And also, there's trauma locked in places in your body from past experiences, and you're calling on that. That's why I'm like, you're not going to get things done because no one else here did. In the past, it never happened. Why should it be any different?
Yes.
You got to have a leap of faith. You have to take a leap of faith. I know it's scary. I know it's scary later in life. We were both married to different people. We had all these experiences. No doubt, coming into this later in life, knowing the pain we've experienced and all of that, why would we want to go through that again? Because we don't plan to go through it again.
Exactly.
Cool.
Exactly.
All right, my love. What are we talking about next time? Let me look at my notes here. Ooh, what's next? So in our episode number 4, so all of this takes understanding and empathy on both parts. Empathy is the ability to understand and share the feelings of another. So this is a healthy feminine energy, and there can be lack of empathy at home and in the workplace. So we're going to divert a little bit, because we're going to talk about in our next episode how we can dive in and lead. Someone like you can lead with empathy at work and home, and even me, because there is a masculine energy within me that I have to use at work. Not a wounded masculine, not a controlling, angry masculine, but a healthy masculine to lead in the workplace. But I want to talk about what can happen when that empathy doesn't exist in the workplace. And I know you've got lots of golden nuggets to share because of your role and what you do professionally. So
yeah. And it so relates to the individual and to family, and you can use it everywhere.
Yeah. So leading with empathy, we're going to talk about. I should just summarize. We're going to talk about leading with empathy. All right. So anybody, if you have questions, if you have feedback, if you have ideas, please email us at Joleene@takeyourvoiceback.com. We also have the email in the show notes. I'm going to get my coffee here, and we're going to sign off, baby.
Sounds good.
I love it.
Thanks.
Yeah.
See you at the next one.
See you at the next one, guy.